like I didn't realize until I was watching this how many of these came to mind that I'd like. Super Nanny, big fan of Super Nanny at one point. Like
that sounds terrible to me. Is that like the dog whisperer except for kids?
Yes.
Ew.
But she's British.
Gross. I mean, not gross British, but like gross. Just that whole.
We don't have that many listeners in the UK
idea.
according to the metrics, so.
No. Welcome to Cult Favorite, the podcast that will never ask you for an audition tape. I'm Miranda Simmons.
And I'm Mike Altman. We are two.
We will also never ask you to work out until you puke.
No. Why would we ask anyone?
We will also never offer you caffeine pills.
I mean, depends on the situation.
I will never do that. I'll offer you a cup of coffee in my office if you want that.
Yeah.
That's the caffeine that I can offer.
Yeah, I don't think, I guess caffeine pills. I always think, do you not think of Jesse Spano when you think of caffeine pills?
Oh, sure.
I'm so excited.
I'm so scared.
Yeah, there you go. If anyone, maybe now that
that's your Saved by the Bell illusion for the day. Anyway, Who are we, Michael?
Never mind.
We are two religious studies professors who watched Saved by the Bell.
Yes, I was watching Saved by the Bell the first time my partner told me she was pregnant.
Aw. Yeah. I guess I don't actually know what the correct response is to that. I'm not sure if that's is that a cute thing? Is that I'm sorry?
I was eating cereal and watching Saved by the Bell. I'm like, I'm not. If this is the situation that this is happening in, I may not be prepared for this.
Yeah, right. Babies having babies.
I'm also thinking about, now that I'm assigning this in one of my classes for people to listen to episodes, every student in my class who's going to happen upon this.
They're going to have so much Mike lore.
You got to listen to it all back to back, though. So, but we are two religious studies professors. I lost track of where we are, trying to understand all these cult documentaries. You can't stop binge watching. If you want to support the show and help more people find us, follow us on all of the socials at Cult Favorite on TikTok and Cult Favorite Pod on TikTok and Instagram. And
subscribe to the show. Mike had a late night, everybody. Don't say. We're talking about Fit for TV.
Saying right now, I had the wrong episode notes open, and I was like, "This is confusing."
Well, we'll get through it together because you know what, Mike, we're a team, and we're going to support each other instead of voting each other off.
Yeah,
like they do in The Biggest Loser, which is the show that we're going to talk about today. Yes. Namely, the documentary from Netflix that came out just recently here in 2025. Called Fit for TV, The Reality of The Biggest Loser. And, content warning is to do with lots of verbal abuse and anti-fat bias and calorie counts and disordered eating. So if any of those things are not what you want to hear about, we don't blame you. And we'll see you again later. Did you know about The Biggest Loser? How could you not know about The Biggest Loser? What was your framework? What are you coming in to this episode with?
I feel like I watched maybe parts of a season around 2007.
Because you're a big reality TV guy. Did this one appeal to you or not appeal to you?
Well, I was not. I think I didn't realize that I was a reality TV person until later. But this was just on. Right. This was because it was pre-streaming,
sure,
so it was just a thing that was on,
right?
I remember watching some episodes of it, but I don't feel like I was.
It began in 2004.
Okay,
so yes, early years, and it ran for 17 seasons.
Yeah,
2004 to 2016, and then apparently came back in 2020 for one final season.
I don't think that counts. That's count. Like the Netflix Arrested Development episode.
I wonder what. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I knew about the show. It was kind of everywhere for a really long time. Yeah. At least in reality TV terms.
And it was part of I'm sure as I'm starting to get more into research on reality TV stuff, but it was part of this whole era of makeover reality TV.
Okay.
I was thinking Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
Okay.
And like all of these other shows that were.
See, this is I'm glad that you have these context points because I feel like I am not a big reality TV aficionado, and so it's useful to like put what were the other reality things that were on at the time.
There was the Swan, which was like a plastic surgery makeover show.
Ugh.
Yeah.
All right.
The whole thing.
Well,
it was not a great time.
Not a great time. And a lot of, reality TV does, one of the things that we talk a lot about in our classes and in the work that we do is to do with like how the stories that we tell reflect our own interests, our own needs, our own desires, our own anxieties. Like what we talk about is as much to do with ourselves as it is to do with the thing that we're describing. So reality TV is really a good example of that because so much of what it puts on display and then shines a very particular kind of production light on is to do with the water we swim in culturally. For The Biggest Loser, that very much is the water of anti-fat bias. So this documentary covers the phenomenon of The Biggest Loser show, those 17 seasons. If you do not know about this show, it was a very simple premise. Like the person who loses the most weight gets $250,000. The person who loses the least amount of weight, like they get voted off, they get sent home each week. It's like I don't know. Is it like the people who are like the two lowest?
They didn't talk about the game mechanics much because I feel like it was the people who are lowest. It's like
they're like you get to choose
between them.
Yeah.
Because
and then they get voted off.
There is a social game aspect, like
for sure.
It is still of the genre of Big Brother and Survivor at the same moment.
Yep.
Right. So it's this weird mix of like the makeover show and the competition, social competition show.
The executive producers will say, because they get interviewed for this documentary, and they will say that the intention behind the show was to inspire people and show how you can change your life with lots of support. That apparently the impetus was one of them was working out and they saw like a note that said, please help me save my life, basically. Yeah. And he was like, that's a show. Anyway.
Did you know of JD Roth before this?
I know that name, but I don't know why I know that name.
He hosted all of those kids game shows in the 90s. Like I was IMDbing him and I couldn't find it, but he was kind of like all the stuff that was on like CBS Saturday Morning. Like he was one of those kids show host guys.
I definitely didn't know who he was then because like I think JD Roth is just one of those names that sounds like it's a name that you know.
Like, yeah.
Like maybe I was thinking about like Eli Roth. I'm not sure.
Yeah. JD Roth could be the lead singer of a band. Yeah, he could be a painter.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So it covers the phenomenon of the show because it became a very big deal at its height. It was making over $100 million every year. It was going global. It was everywhere. And it also talks about the controversial methods on the show, the harm done to contestants, the way that they both reflect and shape broader social ideas about fat people in this country, especially. What doesn't, the game mechanics, you're right. It also doesn't really highlight, we do hear from Aubrey Gordon, which I really, really appreciated. We'll talk about her more in a bit, but it didn't highlight a lot of like the people doing the work to address the ubiquity of anti-fat bias. So again, I'm always looking for what is the structure containing this phenomenon that we talk about, and what's the apparatus? What is the thing that makes this possible, and to what extent does a description of that thing also be aware of and put language to that containing structure? There's a little, but not a lot. So
there's also only a hand. Like it was shocking by the end to realize there were like 340 some people who had been on the show, and we hear from like 7.
Yeah, a handful.
So I think it's interesting to be curious to know. And I'm not saying that it's like a defense of the show. I'm not channeling my inner JD Roth, but like I bet there's a lot of there's probably a ton more stories that are not that don't map onto the ones that were given that I'm curious about. I'm sure they're out there. But.
Perhaps. But if we extrapolate the statistics from the NIH study that we will also talk about, then, we perhaps can have a sense of what's been going on with them. We'll see. So what we know is that their metabolism has been irrevocably slowed down. Okay, so it's 3 episodes. We meet the former contestants in the first one. We hear their stories and reasons for wanting to be on the show. So Danny Cahill, Ryan Benson, Joelle Gwynn, we will hear from, and Tracy Yukich. We meet the executive producers, like I said. Their idea was that, we can show people losing weight the old-fashioned way, quote unquote. The old-fashioned way means ostensibly just diet and exercise. However, that also means like really wacky challenges.
Right.
Very like, what's the show that I'm thinking of where I'm seeing people like trying to do run a gauntlet with I don't know, over top of a tank of water and stuff. What's that show that I'm thinking of? It doesn't matter.
American Ninja Warrior?
Maybe. wasn't that a thing?
That is a thing. It's still a thing. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, there were challenges like that.
Yeah.
And there were temptation challenges. I'm using scare quotes with my fingers. Where people would have if you eat, the person who can eat the most gets to win a prize.
Yeah.
They were working out 6 to 8 hours a day with trainers. They were having to lose 6,000 calories minimally each day for the first week. So these things are happening, which is not exactly the old-fashioned way, traditional way of losing weight. It's very not reflective of real life, but that's what's happening in the show.
Also, the old-fashioned way was people didn't aim I don't know how old-fashioned we're getting, but it's not I don't know. I just feel like weight loss 200 years ago, the invention of weight loss is itself a modern thing.
Yes.
So there is no old-fashioned way.
Yes. And so the very premise of here are fat people coming onto a show. We're going to put them in front of cameras and have, it's very voyeuristic. It's all very predicated upon people's predilections for seeing fat bodies in a certain way, in the kind of B-roll newscasty film reels of just headless bodies walking around as we talk about something called the obesity epidemic, which is again, so much more complicated than even also this documentary allows it to be. But instead, we conflate something called the obesity epidemic with a prejudice against fat bodies. And because we say that it's about caring about health, that gives carte blanche for trainers to treat fat people like shit and say that it's, about saving their lives. So it is a reality show. And so the focus is not on health, but on winning. And everyone signs these contracts. This is something that we've heard before in documentaries to do with more traditional, quote unquote cults that have religion in play. Is these contracts that you have to be, so you're taken away from your family, but then you're also asked to sign a contract. One of the contestants asks for a lawyer and they remind her that she's easy to replace. So, the trainers are Bob Harper and Jillian Michaels. The host is Allison Sweeney. So maybe those are names that you know. And like I said, I was glad that they interviewed Aubrey Gordon. She's the host of Maintenance Phase, the co-host of Maintenance Phase, a podcast debunking wellness culture and wellness myths. And she gives us insight on ideas getting reinforced by the show. So, and she's written about this. She has several books that I have recommended before on this podcast. But, some of those ideas are things like fat people can't be trusted around food. And when someone gets to be a certain size, you get to treat them whatever way you want, and so on and so on. We also meet Robert Huizinga. Had you heard about him before? Did you know who he was?
I felt like I recognized him as just like TV
doctor face about
guy.
town.
And he was like, he got hired by Al Davis, which, by the way, like Al Davis was an insane person. Like that he worked for the Raiders.
So who's Al Davis?
Al Davis was the owner of the Oakland Raiders or Los Angeles Raiders.
Sure. Yes, he was the team physician for the Raiders.
Yeah,
yes.
But it was like
he was also a defense witness at the O.J. Simpson trial.
And Al Davis was a very idiosyncratic person, and so he would hire the celebrity doctor would appeal to him. So there's something very weird about all of that. Like, yeah.
He says a few interesting things as interviewed in his role of being the medical advisor for The Biggest Loser. The first of which ended the first episode, which is, quote, "You can't have a show based on weight loss that's safe." And really, if we take that seriously, then what are we doing? But his understanding, his sense was that he was going to be consulted far more than he was, that he should have been at every challenge, but wasn't, that his team of medical advisors were not cued into like what was going on. So,
and you get the sense that after the first couple of seasons, because he says like, I threatened to quit every season.
Unless he would have a conversation with the trainers. And so they let him give a little spiel to them.
But you get the sense that he was like, they're going to make this show with or without me. So at least if I'm here, they don't hire some other doctor that's going to be worse.
So he was at least, and this is where episode 2 kind of starts. We get to know who he is. We also get to know Tracy's. I mean, there are lots of stories of people getting injured and harmed while working out on The Biggest Loser, because the whole idea was, Dr. Huizinga was kind of informing this, because as a team physician for the Raiders, the running question was, if we incorporated not only diet, but also exercise, what happens if we get people to work out, if not with the skill of a professional athlete, then at least the intensity of a professional athlete? And so we see the effects of doing so on Tracy specifically, whose season contestants were asked to run a mile on a beach, like to make it onto the show. So the stakes are high. The motivation is intense. And she runs most of that mile. She sees the finish line, but then her body just completely shuts down and quits. She's convinced that she died for a moment there on the beach. She, gets landed in the hospital. And so Dr. Huizinga is trying to help her get back on the show, but in a healthy way. And so we hear, the kinds of things that he was recommending more broadly as well. 1,500 to 2,000 calories a day for men, 1,200 calories a day for women. But this is not what the trainers are recommending, obviously. And so there is very much a tug of war happening between the trainers who are like, nobody's going to tell us how to run a training program. It's our diet. It's our exercise regime. And Dr. Huizinga, who Bob Harper says has a God complex, who is saying, well, but you need to maintain this level of calories to keep your metabolic rate, yada, yada.
Yeah. And I mean, just for context, because I was curious about this, because he talks about the offense, talks about the, NFL, whatever.
Right.
Like, in general, the average NFL offensive lineman, so we're talking about the biggest guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're doing like 4,000 to 6,000 calories a day.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking 1,200. Like, so it's such a weird, from the jump, we're talking about yes, if you look at just like weight numbers, which are, you could have a 350-pound lineman who's the same weight as some of these contestants, but everything else is so different.
Well, so we'll get to the there is a NIH study that ends up launching a big critique of this show. But basically their metabolic rates are getting completely ruined by the work that they're doing on this show. And a lot of them are doing these kinds of crash diets instead of attempting to slowly and healthily incorporate a kind of like, let's talk to a dietitian, let's talk to nutritionists, let's talk to people who can talk about, balanced meals, whatever, fresh foods, etc., which is its own complicated conversation. But regardless, that's not what they're doing. It's who can lose the most weight as quickly as possible, period. That's the brief. And Aubrey Gordon at one point says, like, why are people surprised? She's surprised that people were surprised that somehow the contestants like got the memo that was the goal. Lose as much weight as quickly as possible. And all of that is always partnered with, again, these stereotypes and the just general norm of anti-fat bias that makes people understand that their literal social capital, their literal worth in the world is tied to what they look like and how thin they are. So of course they're going to not consume enough calories. Of course they're going to go on these crash diets. Of course they're going to work out past the point of what their bodies can take in order to win the show. They're winning a competition, but it's also based in all of these really complicated issues that are really hurtful for the people who are being put in front of a camera in unsupportive sports bras and spandex. So the trainers are giving them caffeine pills. Jillian specifically is called out for giving caffeine pills. We're not really sure about like whether that ever happens to Bob. He denies this, that he would ever do anything unhealthy. Jillian is also very verbally
4-pound penalty. They like build a penalty into the show.
Yeah, that her team. Yeah. Jillian is also very verbally abusive. We see all of these, clips of her screaming at the contestants, calling them like just calling them names, giving them insults. Like it's that idea that if you look a certain way, you can be treated a certain way, and that the abuse is actually like helping you somehow because it's motivating you. Because then at the end of her tirade, she's like, this is, whatever. She like does this kind of, I'm speaking to the you that you are, not the circumstance that you have or whatever. And like, just stop. You're making me yell at you.
It was the yoga guy that we talked about a few episodes back, Bikram.
Okay.
Remember we had this whole conversation about this, right? Yeah. Like this idea that like change requires
difficulty and pain,
being abused.
Yes.
In some way.
This is true of several of the leaders that we have talked about with the new religious movements and even the, like things that don't even have anything to do with like how we traditionally define religion. Like this idea, that you have to suffer in order to have any kind of moral fiber, that your character is necessarily tied to your level of pain, and that your worth is necessarily tied to, in this case, also how you look, is now like enmeshed in this TV phenomenon. And so we hear Jillian screaming at someone. We also get the scene of Bob screaming at Joelle where she's trying to run for 30 seconds. And he loses it. And, his response to that is a kind of smirk and like, it wasn't my proudest moment. For her, she's like, I've never heard anyone being like berated that way.
She's the one who uses the word abuse to talk about what they're doing.
So there is this, because again, like these people are living in this society, and so they're there is necessarily a lot of emotions, a lot of history, a lot of context that comes with them into the show, where there is this emotional work to be done alongside the physical work that they're trying to do, but nobody on the show is credentialed in any kind of way to handle deep emotional work. So, again, we see the trainers like attempting some sort of like emotional insights in really hackneyed ways. Aubrey Gordon talks about the phenomenon of being totally invisible, but also hyper visible as a fat person, so that your body, you are treated as a body and not as a person. And we see that happening throughout. And then episode 2 ends with someone who says that like the show ruined her life. That's Suzanne Mendonca. Well, she's a NYPD contestant on the show that then with Joelle Gwynn, they like go to the New York Post and tell their stories. And the New York Post releases a story that then they say gets a little bit sensationalized. The caffeine pills becomes this kind of like contestants are being drugged, and Joelle herself is like, that's taken out of context. That wasn't the, Dr. Huizinga sues the New York Post and Joelle for defamation because he's like, I never heard about any of this,
Well, but it's such a distraction. Like it's remarkable how, not remarkable, it's completely, what happens, but like that the idea that they took these pills is somehow the problem with the show.
Oh my God. Yes. Right? 10,000%.
Like, and it is such a kind of cover, or it just sort of covers so much of everything else that's wrong with the whole situation.
But we're putting you on a scale in it, like, so that your body can be featured in a really specific kind of way.
Yeah.
And we're going to ask people to look at it, and we're going to reinforce stereotypes, and we are going to have cameras shake when you fall down.
Oh, the commercial they showed for the next, like,
man. God. So yes. But that isn't the problem, because that's what's familiar to us, and that's what we've internalized, and that's what we've normalized. And so that's, as the social theorists that we are, that's much more difficult to look at. It's much more difficult to talk about. It's much more difficult to critique because we've normalized it.
And
that's called hegemony, everybody. That's
yes. And it comes up early. I can't remember who says it, but this idea of the spectacle of it, right? This thing that is meant to be sort of gawked at, and like it's when you put it in all those terms, it's like, this is kind of I was thinking about all this work I've been looking at recently on sort of carnivals and bodies at carnivals and the spectacle from 19th century stuff.
Right.
And it's like that's been transmuted into shows like this, right?
Yes.
Like where it's the same it's the same freak show.
Yes.
Right? As
because we get to treat fat people as Aubrey says, like as bodies and not people.
Yeah.
So the dehumanizing work has already been done before they step onto a camera. And so then when the camera just perpetuates that work, but then amplifies it onto a platform where it is then, like reinforced and created anew, just on a whole other level.
Yeah.
Like that work's already been done. And so it doesn't strike people as strange or weird or out there. The critiques that come of the show, ultimately, this is another, I'm just basically like, go read everything Aubrey Gordon ever wrote, basically, is my punchline to this. But Like,
we are now an Aubrey Gordon fan cast.
I'm a big fan. Yeah. But it's my cult favorite. You're going to give away my cult favorite is go watch the documentary that was recently made about Aubrey Gordon. But the because that work has already been done, the kinds of critiques are not happening when the show is at its height. Mm-hmm. It's only at the end that even becomes an issue. Anyway.
Yeah.
Tracy, I mean, we see this. Okay. So episode 3 begins with this stuff playing out. The implications of those stereotypes and of this kind of media spectacle is we see Tracy, after she gets kicked off the show, going on a media circuit and getting Jay Leno reading hate mail to her in real time, and her being told, like, just smile and it's okay and blah. And anyway, there is a we hear from Jen Kearns. She's a contestant, but also becomes a medical advisor to Dr. Huizinga. And so she talks about too, like, again, at its heart, this is a TV show and a competition. So it's going to ultimately be advancing that priority and not the priority of the health of the contestants that are competing on it. So Danny Cahill is the first person that we see on the documentary. He also is this kind of then like bookend of like at the very end of the documentary what the work is now. But he's also at this midpoint of where the where things start to change a little bit and where these critiques start to mount, because he was one of the biggest transformations on the show. He loses about 240 pounds in 7 months, which is unreal and is also, again, he's one of the people taking caffeine pills. He's one of the people who's doing crash dieting, etc. So he, so he's on his own media circuit. He's getting like skin, like removal surgery, etc.
Yeah. That was the interesting detail too, of like, they make them not wear their shirt at the beginning of the show.
Yes.
And then they give them compression shirts to hide the extra skin, right? Which is to the spectacle
because
point.
We want to see certain kinds of spectacles that reinforce our beliefs about fat people. We do not want to see the effects of their doing what they're told that then
it's got to be all up literally into the right.
Because I mean I'm jumping around a little bit, but this is in one of the critiques. One of the things that begins like people turning on the show is Rachel Fredrickson, who had been an athlete, but she gains a bunch of weight. She goes on the show and then she loses an inordinate amount of weight. Like she comes out on the finale, and Bob and Jillian are kind of horrified because, she looks skeletal, but again, and so then there's all of this media coming out of like, did Biggest Loser has gone too far? This is where this has crossed a line, yada, yada. And it's like, people, she met the brief.
That's what
she's filling the brief. She did what she was told. She did it correctly. And now she still can't, like, there is just no way for anyone's body to be okay. It has to fit inside of a very narrow space that we've identified that counts as correct. And on either side of that, it's not okay.
Because the goal of the show really is not to produce people who look like the median American or look, some way average. It is to produce people that are, it's a spectacle the other direction. And so she's just gone, it's not just that it's extreme weight loss, is that they want, they want you to,
So
gestures don't work well on a podcast.
7 years after Danny Cahill leaves the show, he has gained the weight back. Like that's the punchline. But it turns out lots of people after they had been off the show for some time had gained all of the weight back. So what's up? Well, the New York Times publishes this piece based on an NIH study of 16 contestants. So admittedly, it was small and there wasn't a control group, like this was, but there are studies to do with like diet fads and the effects of crash dieting and diets never work. This is kind of that's the thing that they don't really deal with the show in the name of, again, good old fashioned way, traditional diet and exercise. What they are not coming to terms with or dealing with in any kind of serious way is that after a body loses a large amount of weight through a diet, because it works quickly and initially, but not sustainedly. That's just not how it is.
Yeah.
And so 14 of the 16 contestants had gained all of their weight back. Some had even, were larger than they were before they started the show. This is because their metabolisms continued to slow down, which is the opposite of what you would imagine it to do. Because as they gain weight back, their metabolism is also supposed to be raising to meet that, to incrementally, like to account for the extra weight. So when they started the show, their metabolic rate was what it should be for a person that weighed whatever it, like the person weighs. But then once they did all of this, crash dieting and exercising for multiple hours per day, it just wreaks havoc on their metabolism. So the metabolism slows, the bodies are not burning enough to maintain these thinner sizes. And so, as Danny puts it, I wake up in the morning and I'm already 800 calories in the hole. Like, what are you supposed to do? To your point about like, there are probably people's stories that don't map on to, I did think that, it was interesting to hear from even just the handful of former contestants in the documentary, because some of them, like Suzanne, are saying, I came back with an eating disorder. This show ruined my life. Joelle is like, fuck you, Bob Harper, and your little dog too. Yeah. But then you've got people like Tracy who says it wasn't the show's fault. It was my fault. Yeah. That like ultimately we're the ones who are accountable. Ryan, who was the winner of one of the early seasons, season 2 maybe, says, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Was it the right choice? I don't know. But like ultimately I'm the person who so there is a spectrum of like where something called blame or accountability falls for each of the people who are talking. Regardless, and there's a spectrum of like we also hear about their various opinions on Ozempic.
Yeah.
There's a great episode of the maintenance phase on Ozempic. Highly, highly recommend. So go follow that rabbit hole at your leisure.
And also, there's one of the things that jumped out to me when we're talking about these different stories and the different people is, the story that Tracy tells about like her marriage and not wanting to go home because she intimates it was an abusive relationship. I don't think she actually, maybe she says it. And there was another, like, there are these stories that are
Joelle too. Yes.
That are not, and they're not.
I'm getting yelled at home. Right. This is not what's helping me.
And I don't want to jump too far into my takeaway, but like, there's this thing about they want to change their life, and that's somehow connected to their weight, and not like the the violence they're experiencing, like all these other things, right? But because the weight and the body is the thing that's visible to everyone they're walking around, and it's the thing that's a TV show. Like, there's no, that, like, even I think Tracy says, like, she lost the weight, but it didn't fix. She came back and she didn't know who she was. It didn't fix the marriage. Right?
Trauma is a different thing.
Yeah, right, and so there's that to me. I think was really
and you can't measure trauma on a scale,
right?
And you can't put it in a sports bra.
And the idea that all people, that that everyone has the same reasons for looking the way they do,
right?
That the show is built into, like, it's just like the old-fashioned way of diet and exercise, as opposed to the old-fashioned way of, like, getting out of an abusive marriage and figuring out who you are and like
totally
that work right? Was not happening.
Totally. And they talk about, there is no after, so there is no like there are no people who are credentialed to deal with like any sort of therapy work or emotional work on the show. There's also no aftercare for the contestants once they leave.
Yeah.
It's just lose the amount of weight, have a finale, win $250,000, the end. There is no like, here's a tiny fraction of the hundreds of millions of dollars we're raking in to like give these, not even 400 people gym memberships or, whatever, help them buy like fresh fruits and vegetables. I don't know. Like,
but how can you put a price tag on saving your life?
Exactly. Right. That was one of the executive producers. That was his takeaway.
If I did it again, I wouldn't even have prize money.
If I could do it again, I wouldn't even give you money.
I could save that 0.25% of the budget. I mean,
the idea is that it would take away the competitive aspect, and so then it would be for the right reasons, blah, blah, blah.
That's what
as if people were only taking caffeine pills and doing what these trainers yelled at them to do so that they could make the money. Like, lots of the people that we hear from talk about, like, they didn't go on the show for, nobody talks about the money as being the primary motivator.
Yeah.
So they come back with no aftercare. Again, like, what they were doing on the show is just categorically not real life. And so the allegations of drug use start to poke holes in the idea of The Biggest Loser as something that is necessarily helpful. The police are following tips on drugs. Bob says that's just because we were successful and people are going to come after you after you're successful. And again, it's just, the memo was to get as thin as possible, just categorically. So in 2017, Bob has a major heart attack. This is a fundamental but implicit premise of the show, is that if you look like the contestants look, you are categorically unhealthy.
Yes.
And your health, but even your life, is at risk. And so you have to do everything you can do to not look that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to say that it's about health, but it's really that I just want you to look a certain way. Right. And if you look the way that our trainers look and you do whatever they say, then you'll, I don't know, live forever and you will just never die. I don't. Bob has a major heart attack though. And so you can still do all the right things and have a massive heart attack.
Yeah.
That is, and so he relates to the contestants in a way that he hadn't before. But that doesn't really, they don't really press the implications of what that relatability means. But, he's still friends with one of the former contestants who names her child after him. So again, there is this spectrum of
there's two who
what
it
people,
was relatively positive experience.
Yeah. Jillian never reaches out to him. I don't really know what, again, there were those little breadcrumbs in the documentary whose point was kind of lost on me.
Wants to make Jillian look bad.
Right? Because it's easier to have now, I think Jillian Michaels is a ghoul who is not being, like, again, is part of, but she is reflective of a larger structural phenomenon.
I think Julia Michaels is doing what she has to do to get over in her field of practice. Like,
sure, like that practice is based on anti-fat bias.
Yes, I don't disagree, but like
dehumanizing.
There's a million jillion. Like, my point is like, it's not.
Yeah. She's not special. Yeah, which is really what we talk about so often in relation to these documentaries. And I guess, that's my point. And while this is not about a cult, quote unquote, in the way that the only cult reference we get is from Suzanne Mendonca, who is the person who with Joelle Gwynn files suit against the show and goes to the New York Post. Or I don't know if they actually sue the show. They get sued for defamation, but they go to the New York Post with her story. Anyway, she talks about drinking the Kool-Aid. At one point, she uses that phrase, which of course we know is a Jonestown reference. I think that it's a good one, though. And I think that the reason that we can talk about this, I mean, there are lots, but the reason it stuck out to me in relation to the other documentaries that we watch and the kinds of things that we talk about is that, as we've said before, so many things have to be up and running on the table in order for this collective that comes to be called a cult, or in this case, not, but to function. Yeah. Like this collective never exists in a vacuum. This show is not popular in a vacuum. People do not see it as their one last hope in a vacuum. Right. These trainers do not yell at people in a vacuum. There is a structural apparatus that is fully functioning in order to make all of this possible. Yeah. And so then the harm that is done is, yes, like you said, like not, it shouldn't be a surprise, but it's also, it is the exception that proves the rule. Yeah. It is in fact the rule. I don't even know that I would call it an exception. It is a natural byproduct of the very rule that we're trying to discuss.
And I'm working on like a working hypothesis that like there's something about, let's call them the post-millennium cults. Like there's something about the things that we often get labeled as cults in the kind of 2000s and later, where they're very often structured around like a kind of social problem, right? Like, so like Twin Flames is built around the
finding love.
Yes. And the kind of a dysfunctional culture around human relationships that we built socially, right?
Yes.
Especially during, when it takes off during quarantine.
Right.
I think you see that in a lot of like in NXIVM, same thing. It's about the broken expectations of corporate culture and self-actualization. Yeah. Right. Which I say I'm wondering if it's these later ones because I don't get the same vibes with like Heaven's Gate, for example. Mm-hmm. But that's what like the show is doing the same thing. It's finding another space of kind of social dysfunction.
People are turning to surgery, not us. Yeah. We're going to do it through diet and exercise. Right.
And then it sort of like takes that and like what's his name? David Fromm, or whatever his name is, the executive producer. He tells that story about seeing this thing on a bulletin board about an obese person who's just asking for help. Yeah. And the fact that like, and this is so early in the documentary, the fact that his response is, that's a show and not, what does this person need? What needs is it? Like, what is the social, like, what is the social network that is failing this person?
Right. David Fromm is the person, by the way, who gave us the axis of evil rhetoric. He's a speechwriter. We're not talking about him. We're talking about David Broom.
Broom.
They're both not great.
Yeah. Not my favorite Davids.
Not my favorite Davids in the world.
No, but like that to me, like that sums so much of it up.
Yes.
Like,
yes. And it's inspiring.
That's my, okay. Yeah. So this gets to what I want to talk about. Right. What do we mean when we talk about inspiring? Like,
what do you think we mean when we talk about inspiring?
I know
what I think when we talk about inspiring.
That's what I'm asking you.
When we talk about something inspiring, I think this is something that's making me feel better about whatever position I occupy in the world. And so on one level, that can be like the anxiety level of that, like that side of the equation is, I'm going to talk about these, like, cults that are creepy, so that I can feel safe.
Right.
In this sense, but it identifies otherness. I think inspiration is always wrapped up in exceptionalism narratives.
Yeah.
And exceptionalism narratives are always reliant upon otherness in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
So what you do with that otherness, like how you relate to it, is depending on the person who's talking about it or whatever. But I think that in lots of ways, people can be called inspirations in ways that are like, if you're an inspiration, you're also not a human. You're like, that can be dehumanizing rhetoric too.
Yeah.
So being inspired is neat, but it's like, I think that we have to be careful about how we produce inspiration narratives, how we identify inspiration narratives, what it also is kind of like couched in order to, like, who are we trying to inspire and in what way?
Well, yeah.
So,
because in my mind, like, to go back to your point about hegemony, like, it's inspiring because somebody overcomes the odds, right? Without recognizing that the odds are socially constructed and built in a certain way.
Because it's supposed to be something that makes me feel connected to you. If you can do this, I can too.
Right.
That's the way that the producers are using the term inspiration. We have temptation rooms because you experience temptation in real life. It's not
come
real
across
life.
Towers of donuts all the time.
All the time. That is not real life. But B, the idea that, like, you're doing this and so I can too is okay. It's good. It can like, I don't know, manifest in lots of different ways, I guess, or it can result in lots of different things. But you're still having this kind of like self-other dynamic where someone is doing something deemed exceptional. And so the very premise of, like, why do these people feel the need to do this exceptional thing? Could it be because society at large is telling them that they're not full human beings unless they do this impossible thing? Is it because like
it's different? Like, because there's the inspiration of, like, of hearing,
like, maybe that's a messed up goal.
A phenomenal concert pianist, where it's like, it's not I could do that. It's like, that's that level of human excellence is inspiring at a certain level, right? Like, a kind of but there's something about in the context of, like, television entertainment, especially reality television, where inspiration is much more it carries with it the underside of, they did it, so why aren't you?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I don't go to a concert and I'm like, man, I feel bad that I can't play piano.
It's an overcoming the odds thing.
Yeah.
It's like, so even if it is, I don't know, someone achieving something despite whatever circumstance, then it's also a kind of like, so you have no excuse to talk about circumstance. You have no excuse to think about, like, it's about individualism. It's about bootstraps. Like, there is a big ethos.
And it's a commodification
of that stuff.
It's a commodified inspiration, right? As opposed to, I don't know, not that I don't think there's some pure aesthetic inspiration, but it is a kind of, it is sold to you, the viewer. Like, I keep working, like, and that's the thing I think about these reality shows and this era of reality television, where not so much the straight competition ones, but these makeover ones, these ones that are supposed to inspire, the change your life ones, like, there's I didn't realize until I was watching this how many of these came to mind that I'd like. Super Nanny, big fan of Super Nanny at one point. Like
that sounds terrible to me. Is that like the dog whisperer except for kids?
Yes.
Ew.
But she's British.
Gross. I mean, not gross British, but like gross. Just that whole.
We don't have that many listeners in the UK according to the metrics, though.
No, it's like that whole idea. Well, yeah, I mean, she's supposed to be Mary Poppins, right? Like that's the idea. That's why she's
going to drop in. But she's going to change your family in a weekend, and your kids are suddenly going to go the fuck to sleep.
Unreal.
But like, but it is this like commodification of that feeling of inspiration of like we could do this too. Mm-hmm. We can fix, which comes with it a sense of like possible guilt and shame of failure, and as opposed to I think that producers eventually realized that like the downfall of the show was in some ways the downfall of that model, mm-hmm. because these were also like they're not professionalized the way a lot of reality show contestants are now,
right?
Where they're not there for the $250,000 or to change their life. They're there to get like Instagram followers.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I found that whole language, and it made me think about like what do we expect mm-hmm. from our television show? Do we really think like I hope I do? I was thinking like I don't think there are as many shows that claim to sort of like solve problems mm-hmm. in this kind of way. Like they mm-hmm. were really pitching like we're gonna inspire America, mm-hmm. which then of course means we have to have all this branded stuff for America to buy.
Sure,
right? I mean, I think even the reboot of the closest I could come up with the kind of current stuff is like the reboot of Queer Eye. Mm. But we don't. That whole project is kind of different.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking like, not to make everything wrestling, but like, but like the point of like The Biggest Loser and these other shows like that mm-hmm. is it is about manufacture. It is a commodified inspiration to kind of get a certain kind of effective reaction, mm-hmm. which is what pro wrestling is.
Right.
But in some ways, the difference is the audience that's watching The Biggest Loser. I mean, you hear it from the contestants who watched this other seasons before.
Right.
Like Danny Cahill, like narrates this whole kind of conversion experience. Like I sat down one time.
Right.
And I sat down and watched the whole episode. Mm-hmm. They think it's real, right? They think it's going to change their lives.
Sure.
Most wrestling fans don't. They pretend it's real. Mm-hmm. They throw themselves into it. Mm-hmm. But there's a recognition of they are trying to get me to react.
Right.
And I'm going to give myself over that because it's pleasurable to react.
Those are professionals who are trained to perform in a certain way.
Yes. No.
And these are like...
But it got me back, like the McMahon documentary talks about, it's about that emotion. Like it was all about that effective emotional reaction. That's when you've got them. But the thing is, they are saying, please come get us. We want this experience, right? Here, it's like, it's not about the effective for the audience. It's about this idea that it's going to actually do it.
Yeah, but it brought to you by a lot of internalized shame heaped upon people by arbitrary beauty standards and health mythology that actively harms people.
Yeah.
So,
what do you want to talk about?
That's. I mean, I've talked about it. What do I want to talk about? I mean, my takeaway.
Your takeaway.
Is that what you mean?
That wasn't there at the beginning of the show.
My takeaway is that people should treat each other better.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of the issue, at least in a generic sense, is that we don't actually, I don't know what we expect. I don't know if we expect reality or just entertainment to like reality TV or entertainment shows to like change the world. I do think we expect them. I think we expect to read anyone on them as two-dimensional. Mm-hmm. Like and we're happy to do so. That's the suspension of disbelief. That we create. This is the villain. This is the person we're rooting for. And even if people are really genuinely invested in those reads, like we know that the person must be more complicated than that, but that's not how we react and it's not how we respond. So so we get to send like the hate mail that Tracy received. Like that's how we treat reality TV contestants, or just people who put themselves out there on in like, our entertainment coliseum is a place where we, like to see people eaten by lions. Yeah. And so it's the way that we expect to be entertained. And the fact is a lot of people's entertainment comes by virtue of human sacrifice.
Yes. And I mean, this to the point that like this summer Love Island had to put out a PSA about please don't cyberbully our contestants. And it's not, so yeah. I mean, for me, the takeaway, I'm this whole idea of change your life.
Sure.
I don't know. There's probably books and books to be written on this idea, but like, I don't know. It just stuck out to me. Like it kept coming up, and everyone wanted to change. So like, I can't remember who said it because I didn't get the quote, but they said, I don't need you to change my life.
It's
Danny
Tracy.
Cahill, Tracy says that. Danny Cahill says everybody struggles with something.
Yeah.
Tracy also says the show didn't change my life. I changed my life. And they go on the show to change their life. We're changing lives. That's what they're saying over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's like, if so many people, the idea of changing your life is such an important goal that is so relatable to sell a TV show that, what do they say? Like, it was like 10 million people were watching it, which is, that's 2000. That's pre-streaming numbers. Which sounds astronomical at this point, but like, that just seems like an indictment about, it's not that different from Jonestown. Like, that there's everything is so broken. Everybody wants to change their life.
The thing is, and like the part the real like tragedy to me is that Tracy, like, absolutely her abusive husband, that needed to be a part of her life that was changed.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
The fact that she thought that in order to change her life for the better, she had to change her body.
Yes.
For someone else's definition of better.
Yes.
That's a tragedy to me.
Yes.
And so the idea that, like, because we're not telling people to change their lives, we're telling them change your body so that I'm not grossed out when I look at you. And that's
change your body.
That's our problem.
Yeah. But it's still framed as it's for you though. But it's for you.
100%. I just want you to be healthy.
We're doing this for you. We're making $100 million.
And it's like, and so circling all the way back, this is us bringing it full circle. The stories we tell, the things we describe are about ourselves, not about the things we're describing. It's when when you tell someone, I just want you to be healthy. Like, okay, are you working for universal health care then? Because that would make me healthier. Are you doing that?
Yeah.
No? Are you just wanting my body to look different? You don't give a shit about me. That's about you.
Well,
you know what I mean?
It does get to the like health is fake. I mean, not like.
Okay.
Well, my point
Goodbye,
being,
everybody.
health is fake. Good night. No, but like, what counts as healthy? There's so many metrics and measurements that we 100%. Like that Bob Harper is somehow like he was healthy until the day he had that heart attack, and now he's
That's
sick.
Right. That's right.
Like,
that's right.
And it'd be interesting to see. There's a lot of change talk, and I was like, what's the other side that's not? What's the words not being said? And to me, it's like growth, like the idea of like slow, natural growth. Like, I don't know. Anyways, what's your...
So I said earlier that my cult favorite was the Jeannie Finlay documentary, Your Fat Friend, from 2023. It follows Aubrey Gordon's own trajectory from anonymously writing online as your fat friend to being a published author and a podcaster who combats anti-fat bias. And you should watch it. You can rent it on Jolt.
And her podcast, Maintenance Phase, is a more nuanced way of saying health is fake.
Our narratives about health, yes, are steeped in a lot of our own stereotypes, and also a lot of like, corporate greed.
Yeah.
And
mostly, yeah. Like corporate greed.
Anyway.
My cold favorite is birds.
Great.
I mean, I've just been noticing the birds lately.
All right.
They're in my yard. A lot of birds in my yard.
Yeah.
It's late summer. It's finally getting. I think it's supposed to get cooler this week. But
I'm wearing a hoodie right now. I mean, that's because of the AC in the building. But it's also like there was. I don't know. It was.
Yeah.
It was like
it was mellower this morning.
Yeah.
And like birds are great. And
birds are great.
Yeah, like I like see. I get cardinals and blue jays and all sorts of things in the yard. So
I was asked to draw. I was going to draw an owl yesterday. Like
yeah.
And so I went like Little Prince version. I drew a tree. Okay. And then like a little word bubble coming out of the tree that just says "who." That was my owl because I don't know how to draw an owl.
My kids' school mascot is an owl.
Oh yeah.
And I've been wanting them, like, I don't know if you've ever seen those old like 60s, 70s like mascots for schools where it's just like a jacked up steroid ridden version of the animal.
Yeah.
I want one of those for the owl for their school mascot. Yeah. Because it would look, I don't know, fun. Like retro. Probably not the best.
Literally just had a whole conversation.
Well, leave that in. Thanks for listening to Cold Favorite. Please subscribe.
I was just thinking that maybe it was like about like, is it because they're wise? You know what I mean? Like, I like the little owls with just like the glasses or whatever. Like, is that
should
the
be
vibe?
That should be their new motto. The owls, wise but swole.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Please subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Leave us a rating and review. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Cult Favorite. Special thanks to the Department of Religious Studies at the University of Alabama for production assistance. And in 2 weeks, we will be back and we're going to talk about the Synanon fix.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, right? That's what we said before the show started.
Great.
So yeah.
Well, next time is your week.
Yeah.
So
Synanon fix.
That's what we're going to do?
Yeah, awesome. On HBO Max.
Anyway,
then.